My name is Jason Graham, and I'm a business litigator. And I started out in 1997 at Schroeder, Willer and Flint, which was a general practice law firm. I made partner in 2006, and left shortly thereafter with another junior partner to start my own firm. And so we were a small law firm, and you all recall 2006 was right before the Great Recession. We survived it, and I went through various different iterations of partnership, and have now had up to 6 attorneys at one point, and now I've downsized to a solo practitioner. That's my law practice side. I wear a couple other entrepreneurial hats. I've owned a bar in Avondale Estates, got a couple Verbos, and I am the CEO and COO of Synergy Law Complex, which is, my partners hate it when I say this, kind of like we work for lawyers. It's we have an office solution for solo practitioners and small law firms where we try to pack a lot of the overhead into the rent. But this is not a sales pitch for Synergy. This is more kind of trying to share how I learned from my mistakes of managing a small law firm in terms of overhead management, and to open it up for discussion to the extent that it's possible in a Zoom format. Discussing overhead from a small law firm perspective. And I'm going to do this through my slide presentation here. I like to start with a definition. What is overhead? And it reminds me of why I hate dictionaries. Define overhead of business expenses such as rent, insurance, heating, things that are not chargeable to a particular part of the work or product. So in the law business, most of us, if we're charging, we have an hourly practice, we're charging our billable time and our third-party expenses out to clients. If we have a contingent practice or flat fee practice, we're charging for the legal service that we're providing, and the client usually pays for the third-party expenses, and then for the law services, and then everything that runs into managing the business of practicing law, which nobody teaches us in law school. You hear that refrain all the time. Nobody teaches us how to run a business in law school. It's true. It's we got to learn that on our own, but that's not part of that. That's the overhead, and so I've testified as expert witness on attorney's fees a number of times, and one thing I like to explain to juries when I'm testifying is, like I have an hourly practice, my rate's $4.95 an hour, and jury or that they get sticker shock. Like, well, I don't make $4.95 an hour. That's baked into that hourly rate is everything I pay for to run a business, which includes, my rent, my copier, my ink for my copier, my paper for my copier, my paralegal salary, my receptionist salary, my parking fees, my malpractice insurance, I really itemize out the overhead, so the jury understands that that hourly rate that I'm asking for them to award on a 13,611 or some other basis for attorney's fees is actually a reasonable hourly rate, because they're probably not charging that or getting paid that. And it, testifying like that as an expert is brings into focus this whole overhead discussion. What overhead is not for small firms and solos. Came across this article about big law overhead. And if y'all had any experience with big law, you'll know that they play in a different universe than we do. We're not having fancy retreats with dozens of people on St. Simon's Island or Amelia Island, or big golf tournaments. And they're talking about post-COVID, that type of overhead coming back, or having 3 floors in some big building in Midtown. But so that their overhead's in a different universe, and That's why they charged, $900 an hour, because they have a lot more overhead than their hourly rates. Um, and and some of these, for like a plaintiff's contingent fee practice, um, some of the larger plaintiffs firms that have all these billboards everywhere, that's a big part of their overhead. It's the advertising. Um, it's billboards or social media or lead generation. That's part of the overhead. Um, so I like to put things into focus through, I'm big into quotes and memes, to get us thinking about these things. And and this is kind of the getting the conversation started piece of the talk. Ron White, he's one of the Jeff Foxworthy crew. So comedy is great because there's no overhead. I like this quote because some solos can get away with very, very little overhead. They're working out of their basement. They meet the clients at Starbucks. If they meet their clients at all. Hopefully they've got some malpractice insurance. They've got an all-in-one printer, scanner, fax machine. People still use fax machines, and a cell phone. And they can practice law just fine with that. And now everything being so virtual. There is a universe where you can get away with a very low overhead practice, and that's some of us can, some of us can't. This Doug McMillan quote with Walmart being built on the idea that we could give our customers access to the items they need every day at the lowest prices by eliminating waste and managing our expenses better than the competition. Look everywhere. Suze Orman, look everywhere you can to cut a little bit from your expenses. It'll add up to a meaningful sum. You'll see this theme throughout. We all have people, if we're not talking about ourselves, we'll have that friend or that family member who's living paycheck to paycheck, who has no idea what they spend their money on, or has a struggling business, and they just have no idea what they're spending their money on. And that's the key as a business owner, is to know where your money's going. And the overhead is what kills you, because you're paying it every month or every quarter. Quarterly expenses really get you. And you got to look at, like Darren Johnson, the profit and loss statement. When I did this live at the state bar, I asked for a show of hands. Who looks at the profit and loss statement at least once a quarter? And less than half the hands went up. If you're doing QuickBooks or whatever you're doing to account for your business, you should at least be looking at your bank statements, your credit card statements, to know where your money's going out. I have one business credit card that I use for all my business expenses, and I look at it all the time. And I only have one paralegal right now, but if I see something weird on there, I ask her, what was this for? Half the time it's something I told her to buy and I forgot about, but at least she knows I'm looking at the expenses. And some things you'll find recurring stuff, like I bought Adobe Pro because I thought I needed it, and then didn't use it for a year. And I'm like, why are we still paying for this? So we get in there and cancel it. The subscription services, that adds up. I mean, if you're paying $15 a month, that's $180 a year. I mean, that'll add up. And some things are a lot bigger than that. It's $150 a month. That's $1,800 a year. I mean, that gets to be real money. Another difference between your necessary discretionary expenses. What do you really need versus, what are the gotta haves and what are the wanna haves. Learning from memes. I love this Ben Franklin quote. You'll see this a couple times. Beware of little expenses. A small leak will sink a great ship. I mean, that's what we're talking about with the subscription services. Knows everyone uses the internet, refuses to invest in the website. I mean, how many of us did a website when we first hung our shingle and haven't looked at it since? I'm probably guilty of that. I set up my LinkedIn profile 5 years ago and probably haven't looked at it since. But there's things you should be spending money on that we're probably not. And there's things that we're spending money on that we probably shouldn't be. And so, I made this little list. This is my list of wants versus needs. Um, and I have a long list of things that I think I need. I think I need an office. I can't work at home. I can't work at home all the time. You know, I see clients in the office still. Um, and so with an office comes all these other things you got to have. And part of this thing about over consolidation is what can you get if you're renting? What can you get your landlord to include with the rent, as opposed to what do you have to pay yourself? Or is it smarter for you to buy a building, and maybe rent out the extra space to somebody else? That's how I wound up with Synergy, actually. Because we were renting more space than we needed and subleasing to others and other lawyers, and like, well, we should do this on purpose and build equity instead of paying rent. But you have to pay your bar dues, your CLEs. I think health insurance is necessary. Not everybody. Some of you young people are like, that's for old people. But some things are wants. Do I have to have a live receptionist? Do I have to have the daily report? Shredding services, I got rid of it. I take my old files home and throw them in the fire pit. Try not to get caught when there's a burn ban. There's just don't throw that HIPAA protected medical records of your PI lawyer into the dumpster. Make sure you shred it or burn it. But you should have a chart of needs and wants and figure out what that monthly cost is. Break it down. And it's a quarterly cost or an annual cost, divided by 4, divided by 12, because you're doing your bills monthly, so that you can see it. And it doesn't include your startup costs or your one-time costs, but really kind of drilling down and understanding as a business person, and we're all business people on top of being lawyers, what those costs are will help us identify where we can find those small leaks and plug them. Learning from memes. I just sent this slide to my wife a couple of days ago because she brought up one of those people in our family. And I was like, oh, this is a slide in my slideshow. And rich people stay rich, living like they're broke. Broke people stay broke, living like they're rich. I mean, we probably all have someone in our family just like that. I know I do. And then the complains about having no money to invest for retirement, spends $15 eating out for lunch every day. We all probably have somebody in our family just like that. I know I do. So I can relate to both these slides. I'm probably guilty of all three of these things sometimes, but I try not to be. Finding the happy medium. Some more memes. This is about the expense reports. You don't know what you don't know. You gotta. We have to look. It takes away from our billable hours. It takes away from our marketing, our networking. It takes, if you have somebody else who can do that, great. I had a business partner who's, when we were partners, his wife was a consultant at Ernst & Young. She was the most overqualified bookkeeper we've ever had. And then when we split up as partners, and I had to do everything myself, it was a disaster. So I hired an outside bookkeeper. But I learned a lot having to do it myself, because now I can work with my outside bookkeeper, and understand what everything means and says. And but you got to look at it. If you're in an office share environment, you'll really appreciate this lower right-hand slide. My friends want to split the check evenly, and all I drank was water. We've all been in that boat before. But expense management and consolidation. Identification is step one, and shopping for value is step two. This cartoon in the upper right, my dad says a penny saved is a penny earned, but I figure quarters are fair game. Did you have a question, Ms. Snyder?
No, I was just laughing at your meme. Sorry. Didn't want to interrupt.
We can all relate to these, right? No,
Exactly.
what this slide really brings home for me is I'm very fortunate. I have a wonderful office manager and paralegal who works half-time for my law practice and half-time for Synergy, Jessica, and she's great at shopping. And, she reshops everything. So for my practice insurance, I don't just auto renew with the same company every year. She shops with 3 to 5 different carriers. We look at different premium levels. We look at different deductible levels. At one time in my career, I felt like I needed $3 million in insurance. Now I'm like, $1 million's probably enough. At one time in my career, I thought, I could get away with, a 5,000. I needed a $5,000 deductible because a $25,000 deductible would break me. Now I'm looking at the premium difference with a $25,000 deductible. I'm like, that's a big premium difference. I'll go to the $25,000 deductible because I've never been sued for malpractice. I'm hopefully never going to be. And so I gotta have it, but I can do the higher deductible. Same with health insurance, same with disability insurance. I mean, I just hit 50 last year, so I got to make sure I have all that stuff. And I've got a family. So we shop all that and every year we don't just auto renew. Lawyers are tree killers. It's amazing how much you can save just shopping around for copy paper, and the prices change like weekly. So a box of copy paper can vary by $20, and damn if Jessica doesn't find the best deal on copy paper in town and change it up. It's not on auto ship. And if you're not doing it yourself, if you can't have a person do it for you, like I'm blessed to have, just whenever you're in line somewhere, shop on your phone when you're killing time for the things that you have to buy repeatedly. Don't just go on autopilot. It sounds mundane, but think of how hard you work to land a retainer or a new client, or to chase that client who's not paying your bill. The penny saved is a penny earned. It's the same thing. It's more money in your pocket. That time is well spent. There's my Ben Franklin quote again, twice. Consolidation, shelter. This is an issue near and dear to my heart as the Synergy guy, but Synergy is not the only solution out there. Start with your landlord. One, the needs list can be included in the rent. One, the wants list can be included in the rent. What expenses can be shared with office mates, right? So it's not just rent. I mean, you co-op with a couple other solos, going together, whether it's buying a building together or renting a building together. Standard commercial lease, triple net, class A, B, or C space. I mean, do you need class A space? Or are you not, if you're not seeing a lot of clients in your office, maybe you don't need class A space. Or maybe you just like having class A space because you spend a lot of money, go to law school, and you don't want to go to some dungy old office. But maybe you don't care. Maybe you're not in the office that much, but you still need a space. Maybe you're fine working out of your house, but you need a conference room every now and then. Check out virtual options. All of these different co-working places have virtual options. With different conference room options, and some have. Regis has hundreds of locations. Synergy's got one location, but there's all kinds of different options. Being the landlord, rent 5,000 square feet. Right now is a good time to be a renter. Landlords are making deals. There's a lot of empty space. There's an hour-long show on NPR this morning about all the empty space in Atlanta. Go make a deal and
and then rent out to other solos, either in your same practice area or other practice areas where you can cross refer cases. And that's kind of how Synergy got going. But co-working has come a long way. So many more are embracing an all-inclusive model, more than typical landlord. Many lease terms are flexible. I remember when I first went to Regis in 2006, they still wanted to do an 18-month lease, even at Regis. And now that they do month-to-month, drop of the hat. They've caught up with the times. But private offices are now a thing. You know, it's not all tank tops and flip-flops and techies. You can get a private office even at like Industrious or WeWork. As you know, it's the location convenient for you and your clients. One lesson I learned at Synergy is when we first started the idea of it. I thought I was always used to commuting, right? Because I lived out in the burbs. I had the wife and the 3 kids and the 2 dogs, and wanted the house with the yard. And so I always commuted to work. So it's no big deal to me to be stuck in traffic. I learned that solo practitioners who could afford my rent would not commute. They wanted an office near where they work. So I would say 90% of our members live within 2 zip codes. And so, you know, if that's important to you, you know, make sure if you're looking for an office that includes a lot of things, you know, make sure you're taking your commute into account, because that time is important. You know, or if you're in court a lot, is the location central to the courts that you practice in a lot. You know, because that time is money also. And are you comparing apples to apples when you're value shopping? So, you know, if say you're looking at between Regis and Industrious, for example, and I don't know their actual plans. I just hate keeping to use Synergy, but so if you're looking at one and it does include a certain amount of conference room space a month, and the other one charges you $50 an hour for conference room space, and your type of person needs conference room space, so you're an estate planning lawyer and you do bill signings, then you know that's going to matter, right? If it's included in your rent or not. You know, does it include? I know the answer to this for everyone but us is, does it include a Westlaw plan? Right? We include a Westlaw plan. Nobody else does. Does that matter though? I mean, I've had attorneys tell me I've been using the same forms for 20 years. I don't need a Westlaw plan. Can I get a discount? I'm like, no, because I buy 50 licenses at a time, and it doesn't cost me any less for you not to use Westlaw. But yeah, make sure you're comparing apples to apples. Here's an example of some of the co-working places out there. There's a lot of them. The only one I know of that's law specific is this Peachtree Legal Center, and they're in downtown, the old Macy's building or Rich's building. Maybe that's the same building. It's like 200 Peachtree, but they're law firm specific. But all these other places have lots of different options for co-working. And there's a lot of law firms now that have extra space. So you get medium to big size law firms that will sublet to you. And that's how I got started in this. We had extra space and sublet to solo practitioners that we were friends with. Like, this is great. You know, we pay you X a month and we get to drink a coffee and use your copier and your receptionist, and just one monthly amount. And you know, we get to go out with beer with you on Fridays. It's, you know, you send us cases, you know, like I'm like, gee whiz, I should do this on purpose. That's really how Synergy came around. Industrious, here's a few examples. So yeah, they have 150 locations. That's important to you. If you have a national practice and you need a conference room in New York or conference room in Chicago, sometimes you want to go to all these big places where you have a membership. Oh, this time for a tour, get your first day free. look at it as a free day. Just side note. There's a synergy. Yeah, we're just for lawyers. Our location's in Sandy Springs, by the way, Barfield and Hammond, but 425. Peachtree Legal's the other legal one I was telling you about. There's a lot of options there. So in terms of other overhead, here's a big overhead thing. If you're all in a room with me, I'd ask you to raise hands, like who has employees. At Synergy, we've got, I don't know, 50 lawyers. You know, some of them are virtual, some of them have offices. But I would say most of them don't have any employees. We have a lot of solos or even two-person firms that are just lawyers with no employees at all. That was a foreign concept to me before Synergy. I'd always had either, you know, an associate or a paralegal, you know, an admin person. I'm just one of those people that I would miss court and all my filing deadlines if I didn't have somebody, you know, making me show up on time. I know my strengths, I know my weaknesses, and I hire people to make up for my weaknesses. But there's a lot of people here that they're just one person shows. But this part of overhead is something that, you know, has pros and cons. You know, leverage and scale can mean more money, you know, especially if you're billing out an associate. You know, if you're paying them the equivalent of $75 an hour and you're billing them out at $225 an hour, assuming your collection rate's good, you're making bank. Same if you have an admin person. I mean, if you have someone spending time doing stuff that you would otherwise be doing, and you can spend that time either billing hours that you're collecting or generating business, you know, more leads, more retainers, or pushing cases through the pipeline, settling cases, whatever practice area is, then you're making more money with your time because you have someone else doing the non-revenue generating stuff. Someone else is pushing that rock up the hill, living the dream. So but that piece of overhead gets very fixed, right? And they get paid first. You know, number one rule of business, never miss payroll. So, you know, if your revenue is lumpy, and most of solos they are, you know, your collections are better some months than others. You got to make sure if you're paying somebody $60,000 a year, you know, that you have $5,000 a month, that hell or high water is going to get paid, bar anything. The cons is your hand really on the runner. You know, if you have employees. I had a mentor who used to say that the only thing you need for employee problems are employees. You know, are you just working to feed the machine? Are there personnel problems or personal problems? Always drama in the workplace when you have employees. Finders, minders, and grinders. Can you still do it all? But this is a big piece of overhead. Something you should really think carefully about if you're so just really be careful about before you do it. I just checked the chat and I got a couple of questions. Ronnie can't unmute. That's a question for Kim. I don't know how to deal with that. Angelin Wright asks, why is payroll a want? I'm in Ms. Wright's camp. For me, payroll is a need. But I think it does depend on the person. So I can definitely relate to that, Ms. Wright. So getting philosophical, this is actually a slide from a prior take charge presentation I did on mentorship. So I just left it in here for fun. But I think this was from Thomson Reuters about small firms small law firms report that we all spend too much time on admin tasks instead of practicing law. And that is, I know that's the case for me. I do a lot of admin. I mean, I have an hourly practice, so just, you know, billing my time at the end of the day, and then at the end of the month, making sure I bill all my time, and then getting my bills out, and then chasing my clients to get the checks in. It just takes an enormous amount of time just for that piece of my practice, not to mention the other stuff. But for me, it has helped to be at a place like Synergy where all of my overhead is baked into the rent. Like I don't have to worry about the copier or the coffee machine or the, you know, soda machine or the receptionist and all that kind of stuff. Those headaches are handled for me by the administrative staff. And yeah, I'm using my own experience with Synergy, but yeah, there's other solutions besides Synergy. This isn't just a Synergy commercial. And not everybody needs an office, yeah, but even those who don't need an office probably need some type of whatever we're doing. But homework, there's a lot of good reading out there, and I did do a lot of homework early on when I was starting my law practice, because I didn't know what I was doing. And so I read a lot of books and listened to a lot of books, a lot of audio books while in Atlanta traffic. I definitely recommend some of these books, and there's some good consultants out there. Some of them are at the Take Charge conference. I think Stephanie Everett, so a good one. But there's a lot of resources out there. And then my final slide is just a little plug for Synergy. But that is this went a lot faster because we weren't in a live question and answer format. If I'd have to lean on Kim to open it up for questions, and the best way to do that. I see some people I know on the Zoom. I don't know if we want to do raising hands or just unmute everybody and a free for all, or so the question from Attorney Sylvia Jones to everyone: what are the Synergy fees? I guess for comparison sakes. We publish our fees on the website, synergylawcomplex.com. There's a tab called What We Offer, and we have 3 virtual plans, and you know, which are fancily named, you know, like silver, gold, gold plus, and then we have the platinum plan, which is if you have a brick and mortar office. And I think it's the brick and mortar office is $1,750, $1,750, and it's truly all inclusive. Like it includes a nationwide Westlaw plan that's like the kind you get if you're a Harvard law professor or a King and Spalding partner, and it includes, you know, the parking and the internet and the phone and the receptionist, you know, a couple happy hours a month, and a locked mailbox, and a wonderful cafe for use with Coke Freestyle machine and coffee, and reception services, and we have a managed referral program to help attorneys refer work in-house. Basically, I play matchmaker. You know, people ask me, well, hey, do we have any divorce lawyers? I say, yeah, Ronnie Kaplan, she's great. You know, just try to connect people. And we do networking events, and then we have you know, a number of virtual plans for people who do work at home, but occasionally need a conference room or want to participate in the camaraderie of our networking events and take advantage of the referral program,
or sometimes need a day office, like we have virtual offices. Some lawyers who won't be named, you know, have a little travel bag with like wedding photos and nameplates that they just set out in their office, make it look like they live there when they meet clients. And we do provide even our virtual people with a nameplate that screws on outside the door for when they're here for a day office. But just a lot of different options. I saw David Jaffer on the Zoom. I think David's been here before.
I have. Great work, great presentation, Jason.
Thank you, David.
It sounds like the synergy proposition is lawyer can be lawyer, and you figure out how to minimize expenses, shopping around for insurance and copy paper, and then through the referral program, hopefully increase the revenue for that lawyer being within that environment versus just being out on their own. More or less?
Yeah. Yeah, and if I remember right, I almost got you here, and then you decided to buy your own building.
Well, you taught me too well. That's what happened.
Does anybody else have any questions or want to contribute any comments from their own experience about overhead management or any lessons learned?
Just still continuing, I don't know how you do it and how others do it, but the biggest challenge that I have is keeping track of hourly billing. So I'm almost moving towards flat fee because that is such a task. It requires a certain amount of discipline, and once you lose it, it's hard to, if you wait till a week or two, it's hard to put things back together. How do you do it?
Definitely still. I find myself at the end of every month, I drop all of my inbox items and sent items for the month into a separate folder for that month. And I go through every email communication to and from, and because almost everything I do results in an email communication. And I check that against my time records to see what I missed.
Still a challenge, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm sure I give away a lot of free legal time because of my bad billing practices.
Well, I've done it, and so I continue to do it. And but that's how you realize it when you look at your email saying, oh, by the way, I never billed it. And once so much time passes by, it's difficult to then create a bill and try to collect. So you say you bill at the end of the month?
I try to bill daily, but I audit my daily billing at the end of the month before I send bills by cross-checking that my emails.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I appreciate everybody showing up on the Zoom. If anyone's in the neighborhood, we are having a open house and happy hour starting at 4 to probably about 7. If everybody wants to fight the traffic and have a beer or a glass of wine or some snacks. Meet some of our members.
Question on the flat fee billing. So do you still keep time? I know you're trying to get away from that, but what happens if the client terminates or has a problem with whatever's going on in the case? Seems like your time billing would be your backup, even though it's a pain in the neck to keep it if you're trying to be flat fee.
Yeah, so and I presume, is that a question for me or is that for Jason?
Well, either anybody.
Jason, I'll let you take a first crack.
I think, like I mentioned earlier in my presentation, I've been an expert witness on attorney's fees. I think it's important to take contemporaneous billing records no matter what, if you're a litigator, because you may have an attorney's fees claim that you're not even aware of until the end of the case, because you could wind up having a 9/15/14 claim. And although the case law has gotten a little loosey-goosey about what evidence you need to win a fees award, I think it's a lot stronger if you have contemporaneous fee records, time records.
So for my practice, yeah, so I try to, you know, and I still have some hourly billing and for those, you're right, I do have to keep track of them. One, if for no other reason than to know if I'm engaging in the same type of matter over and over again, is my flat fee calibrated? So having the hourly records is certainly a good sort of yardstick in case I need to change that. And those that I actually do end up charging by the hour, it's a struggle. And, you know, sometimes I think I should just try to standardize my practice and stay away from the areas that I know is going to, for me as a lawyer, that's going to take, you know, it's going to take a lot to be more disciplined about the hourly billing. My law partner, on the other hand, she's great. She puts her time in, she's got Excel, it gets reduced to the software that we use for billing. The name escapes me now, but you know, she does a better job. So if I know something's going to be hourly, I said, here, there you go, that's your case. So that's how I do it.
I can speak from a transactional standpoint. I do IP law, mostly trademarks, copyrights, business formations, those sorts of things, not litigation. And so the way my practice is set up, I've always done a flat fee, but I do pay attention to see how much time I spend on each client's work. I make sure I keep great records for that. If there's ever an issue later on, or if we do have to go to litigation or anything like that, I think it just depends on your practice and how comfortable you are with being able to set your prices that way. If you've been practicing long enough, you might have sort of a track record to see, you know, for basic cases that you deal with, how much time you actually spend to be able to do those things. But from a transactional standpoint, because I have a lot of really great templates and systems that I put in place, it just makes it a lot easier for me to be able to forecast that, because I work with a lot of entrepreneurs and first-time business owners. And so they want to be able to have an idea of how much it's going to cost them to have my services. Plus, I have a subscription-based service for them where they can, you know, pretty much get me for a certain amount for the month. They pay that and they've got whatever sort of things that pop up. They're able to work with me and not have to worry about getting a surprise bill at the end of the month, because they know what they can expect from me. And it's gone great so far over the last 2 years since I started my firm.
Unless anybody else has anything, appreciate everybody showing up and enjoyed doing this. Hope some of it was helpful. And it wasn't just an infomercial for Synergy. That's my goal not to be. Got one new message. Let's see. Just a thank you. Appreciate it.
Any questions?
No, thanks for setting this up. I'm glad I figured out the Zoom, so I wasn't on early like I meant to be, but just stuck in the same traffic everybody else did.
You're very welcome. Are there any questions anyone have to ask Jason?
Well, it's more of a technical. I was trying to click on the link that was posted now, and it's not going through.
For the newsletter?
Yes, I tried it on a couple of browsers and I couldn't see. It's not going through on my end, at least.
Okay, I can send that, resend that to you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Well, Jason, you can close whenever you're ready. If
Okay.
anyone doesn't have any more questions to ask you.
Great. And if you wouldn't mind, I don't know if I have an email list with participants, but if you wouldn't mind sending around the Synergy Law Complex email website link, because some people have some questions about the Synergy itself. I didn't spend a lot of time talking about Synergy directly, but they can check out the website.
Sure.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much. Appreciate it. And I wish you were here to enjoy the happy hour.
Yeah, me
I know.
too.
It's a hike from downtown though.
Yeah, the traffic is like
Yeah,
bad, so.
But we have a MARTA station not far from here, so
Oh, wow, okay. Well, I have to
Next
visit
time.
one day.
please. All right, I'm gonna click the leave button and I look forward to seeing y'all soon.
Okay, and I will send the link, the newsletter link and Synergy Law Complex's website to everyone. And also, Jason, is it okay to send your materials as well to the to the
absolutely.
attendees? Okay, I would do that for you all, and that'll be all.
Thanks a lot.
All right,
Bye-bye.
thank you. You all have a good afternoon.